Al-Jamah party says it rejects provisions on the white paper, which it views as Eurocentric in its formulation. The Department of Home Affairs published its revised draft white paper on citizenship, immigration, and refugee protection. The revised draft white paper reframes citizenship and immigration as both an economic enabler and a security and public interest function. For more on this, I'm joined now by Hanif Hendricks, leader of Al-Jamah, also in the Government of National Unity. Hanif, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on this afternoon. So you have a white paper that seeks to do, amongst other things, consolidate three separate pieces of legislation: the Citizenship Act, the Immigration Act, and the Refugee Act, into a single cohesive statute that addresses modern security and economic needs. And you are rejecting all of it outright. Why?
Look, there's a certain part that we support, and that is the digitalization, which will speed up the work of the Department of Home Affairs. But you must remember that this white paper is now a policy that will lead to a bill that will lead to an act of parliament. And the policy is counter-revolutionary. It promotes white supremacism, and it is racist. So we cannot accept such a policy. And I've already asked the party's leadership to lodge a complaint in the Leaders Forum of the Government of National Unity, and for the dispute mechanisms provided, as Al-Jamah is now opposing the position of the cabinet, who has approved this racist, white supremacist policy with regard to asylum seekers and also with regard to pathways to residency and citizenship at the expense of especially Africans. So we know there are other Asians and Middle East people that immigrate to South Africa, but we're largely concerned about the fact that this is directed at preventing Africans to get asylum in South Africa. Secondly, pathways to residency and also to citizenship. And so our Limpopo provincial office has been invited to a public hearing tomorrow. That's why I'm in Polokwane.
Yeah.
We're sitting with our branch leaders from 10 areas in Limpopo, and we're getting a mandate for them tomorrow. And I just left the meeting now, and they've endorsed the party's position to ask that the white paper be recalled, and that we ask the South African Law Commission to rather lead this process and not a Democratic Alliance. It's counter-revolutionary. It is what they call a refoulement. And as you know, that for the last 30 years during our democracy, South Africa has largely followed the position of the African Union, and it has followed the position of the UN Human Rights Council instead of the provision which is in the Convention on Refugees, which states that particular principle. We feel that South Africa has been progressive in ignoring that principle, and it allows people to bypass countries which is deemed to be the nearest safe country, but it may not be safe for the person that wants asylum status. And there has been a lot of court cases where people have justified why they bypassed certain countries. For example, someone from Angola may not want to go to Zimbabwe, which is considered now to be a safe country, and they prefer to come to South Africa. There are quite a number of research that has been done on this by human rights organizations, and that we will present tomorrow. and we will also present it in our formal written submission.
Right.
The deadline, which has now been extended to Valentine's Day. As you know, every African country in Africa contributed to the freedoms that the two of us enjoy today. And so we have to take that into account. The other immigrants or asylum seekers that come to South Africa, they play a very important role in serving good causes in the country. They become business people. They plow back into the country. So South Africa needs to be think out of the box, guided by the Convention on Refugees, which, by the way, you know. They also wanted South Africa to cancel its participation in a convention, and fortunately, we won the first battle in that cabinet. Has now agreed to stay in the convention. So we're very concerned that the narrative that is now being spun and the leadership taken, by Department of Home Affairs, which is part of the Government of National Unity, is going to undo the gains that we have achieved over the last 30 years in having a progressive approach. And for example, if someone bypasses a so-called safe country, to seriously consider granting him refugee status and not to send him back to the nearest country. So that is anti-revolutionary. When a person comes to your country and you say, no, no, we can't even consider your application. You pass Zimbabwe, so you must go there. We're now deporting you to Zimbabwe. And then also deporting people to countries where they are going to be tortured and where they're going to be harmed. So South Africa needs to, if someone applies for refugee status, we should be honored that they are applying to come to our country. They've chosen our country, but then they have to get their status on the merits, and we have to take into account, especially when it comes to African countries, the contribution they played in us achieving our freedoms,
Yeah.
and favorably consider their application for refugee status. And many people that we grant work permits and they're here for a number of years, they're entitled to residency. That has now been going to be removed from the law. So by staying in South Africa for 5 years, contributing to its economy, building its businesses, serving good causes, that won't count anymore. You have to have skills identified by the Department of Labor, and you need to be rich, have money before you can be granted residency and later on citizenship. That's not how we did things over the last 30 years. If we look at the legislative improvements that we've made during our democracy. I agree, yes, we need to think out of the box. We first had the Black Economic Empowerment Act, which they are with the Democratic Alliance have quarrels with, and now they're pushing this narrative which they want to push down the throat of the GNU, which I, as a member of the Leaders Forum, will oppose vigorously. I've already opposed it at our first meeting, chaired by the president. And we are going to look very carefully at this white paper. Our experts are still studying it. We're looking forward to the public participation tomorrow in Polokwane. And we're going to come up with a very comprehensive written submission to justify why we want this white paper to be recalled, and rather depend on the South African Law Reform Commission to lead this process and not legal opinions, which is what the Department of Home Affairs has done.